The mansion on the hill looked perfect from the outside. It was large and bright with windows that shone like tiny suns. It belonged to Ethan Vance, a billionaire who built his empire from smart machines and clever ideas. People said he could fix any problem, but even the richest man in the city had one problem no one could fix. His twin daughters, Lily and Claire. They were 6 years old and full of life, but their energy was more than anyone could handle. Every nanny that had come through the gates left before the week was over, left some left after a day. The twins were not cruel, but they were curious and wild. They wanted magic in their world and they created chaos trying to find it. One afternoon, they turned the guest pool into a bubble bath with a whole box of soap. Runce tied balloons to the cat and tried to see if it could fly. And one time, they changed all the clocks in the house so no one knew when dinner was supposed to start. Ethan tried to be patient, but his love for order made it hard. He was used to big meetings, quick deals, and silent respect. Nothing about his daughters was silent. His mother told him that the girls missed their mother, and that was why they acted out. His wife, Grace, had passed away when the twins were still babies. Ethan never talked much about it. He built taller buildings, bought faster cars, and hired more help, as if success could fill the empty space inside. It never did. One stormy morning, another nanny left. She packed her bags while muttering about glitter everywhere and frogs in her shoes. Ethan stood in the doorway watching her drive out into the rain. He sighed and rubbed his forehead. His assistant told him the new agency had no one left to send. The twins screamed in the background as a loud crash came from the living room. It was a sound every parent knows well, the sound of something once valuable turning into tiny pieces. That was when Rosie Clark entered the building. She was a janitor who worked the night shift, cleaning the marble floors and wiping the glass walls long after the family was asleep. She was 32, quiet, and known for her steady hands. She had a soft smile and the kind of eyes that looked tired but kind. Most people never noticed her, but she noticed everything. Rosie's life had not been easy. She had a little girl named Mia, who was 8 years old. Mia was smart and loved drawing, but the bills always seemed larger than Rosie's paycheck. Her husband had died in an accident some years ago. Since then, Rosie had worked every job she could find, never complaining, always moving forward. That same morning, the twins raced into the hall, chasing their dog, and Rosie happened to be there mopping. The little dog slipped on the wet floor and barked. Lily almost fell, but Rosie caught her just in time. For a second, the big house went silent. Then Claire started to cry, afraid her sister was hurt. Rosie knelt down and spoke in a calm voice. She said gently that the floor was slippery and accidents could happen, even to brave girls. She handed them tissues and asked what they wanted to play. It was a small moment, but an important one. The twins stopped crying. They looked at her with wide eyes, as if she was the first adult who didn't shout. Ethan came running in ready to scold someone, but saw Rosie talking softly to his daughters. He paused for the first time that morning. After the twins went back to their playroom, Ethan asked Rosie what she had said to calm them down. She answered quietly that children act up when no one listens, and that sometimes they just need a voice that isn't afraid of their noise. She smiled, lifted her mop, and went back to work. That night, Ethan sat in his office staring at the family photo on his desk. It was old and slightly faded. Grace was smiling, holding the twins as babies, while he stood behind them stiff and formal. He thought about Rosie's words. The house was clean and silent again, but it did not feel peaceful. It felt lonely. He realized that money had bought comfort, not warmth. Far below, Rosie finished her shift in the quiet halls. She hummed to herself while pushing the cleaning cart. Her hands were rough, her shoes worn, yet her heart still kind. She did not know that soon her life was about to change. She only knew that every day she cleaned the same floors and went home to kiss her daughter goodnight. Above her, the billionaire couldn't sleep, and in another room. Two little girls whispered under their blankets, wondering if the nice janitor lady would be there again tomorrow. The following morning, the mansion buzzed with confusion. The last nanny had left again, and the twins had already started another adventure. They decided they wanted breakfast on the roof, and were halfway up the stairs with bowls of oatmeal when Ethan caught them.
Dad.
His voice echoed through the hall, half fear and half frustration. He could design software that guided airplanes, but he could not seem to guide his own daughters. The agency sent an apologetic message saying no one else was available. Ethan sat down at the kitchen table staring at his untouched coffee. The housekeepers avoided his eyes. The gardener pretended to check the plants outside. Everyone knew the twins were too much for anyone. In the afternoon, Rosie came in for her cleaning shift. She passed by the study where Ethan sat with his head in his hands. She noticed the twins hiding under a chair, giggling into their sleeves. Something about the picture made her heart ache. She walked over quietly and sat cross-legged on the floor near the chair. She did not scold them or ask what they were doing. She simply said that she was looking for brave helpers today to clean the biggest windows in the world. The twins peeked up. Lily asked what brave helpers got in return. Rosie said they would get a chance to draw smiley faces on clean glass before wiping them away. Their eyes lit up. In a few minutes, the living room windows gleamed, and the girls laughed at their own funny faces. For the first time all day, there was joy instead of shouting. Ethan walked in and stopped. The twins were working peacefully, following Rosie's lead like little shadows. He had never seen them that calm. When Rosie noticed him, she stood up quickly and apologized if she had stepped out of her place. Ethan raised his hand and said she had done more in 1 hour than 10 trained caretakers had done in months. He asked her to stay for a short meeting. She looked worried, afraid she might lose her job for spending time with the girls. Instead, he asked if she would consider taking care of them during the day. Rosie was shocked. She said softly that she was not trained for that kind of work. Ethan smiled for the first time in days and said that maybe training was not what the girls needed. They needed someone they could trust. Rosie thought of Mia waiting at home and all the school supplies she needed. She thought of the extra hours she could get and how much easier life might be if she could earn a little more money. Still, she hesitated. Caring for the daughters of a billionaire was not something she had imagined. She feared she would not fit into his perfect world. Ethan noticed her silence and said she could bring Mia after school if she wanted. He had seen the picture of her daughter pinned to her old cleaning cart and guessed how much she mattered. After hours of thinking, Rosie agreed to try for a week. Ethan arranged for her to start the next morning. That night, she told Mia about the new job. Her daughter jumped with joy, asking if the mansion had a fountain. Rosie laughed and said yes, but they should try not to clean it too much. She also told Mia that no matter where they worked, they would always be the same people inside. Mia hugged her mother tightly. The first morning of her new role, Rosie walked through the gates with her heart racing. She wore a simple dress and carried a small bag of crafts and storybooks. The twins ran downstairs shouting her name. Rosie smiled and began the day with one clear rule, that fun would come after a little learning. They painted shapes on paper and counted them together. When they spilled colors on the carpet, Rosie did not yell. She simply gave them each a towel and said real artists clean their mess. Ethan watched from his office balcony. The sound of laughter floated up the stairs and softened the walls of the house. For the first time since Grace's passing, the mansion felt like a home again. He realized that this woman, with no special training, carried something he had forgotten existed. She carried calmness that came from kindness. Later in the evening, when Rosie prepared snacks in the kitchen, the twins sat on the counter asking questions about Mia. They wanted to meet her. Rosie promised they would one day soon. Ethan entered quietly and thanked her again. She looked at him in surprise and said she was only doing her best. But deep down she felt something warm growing, a small spark that told her maybe this difficult job would be more than just a way to earn money. Maybe it was the start of something bigger, something that could heal more than one heart. The mansion slept peacefully that night. The twins dreamed of playing in the garden. Rosie dreamed of hope, and Ethan, lying awake, wondered how one humble woman had done what no one else could do. The next few weeks at the mansion brought a quiet change that everyone noticed. The halls were no longer filled with screams and loud arguments. The twins now woke up early, washed their faces, and waited for Rosie in the playroom. They had learned to pour their own cereal and even helped set the table, though sometimes the spoons ended up in the wrong places. The cook smiled every morning now, because the kitchen did not feel like a storm anymore. Rosie had begun to fill the girls' days with new lessons. She turned cleaning into small games, teaching them to race the clock while picking up their toys. She read them stories before nap time and gave them paper to draw what they felt. Every story ended with a question that made them think. When Lily said she missed her mother, Rosie listened instead of giving quick speeches. When Claire asked why their father was always busy, Rosie smiled softly and said that grown-ups sometimes forget the value of small moments. Ethan had never believed that such small words could make a difference, but day after day he saw his daughters grow calmer. His meetings became shorter because he wanted to get home early. He began finding excuses to pass by the playroom. Sometimes he sat by the door, watching them laugh as Rosie taught them to make paper crowns or to sing small poems about kindness. One evening, the rain fell hard outside and thunder rolled across the hills. The twins feared storms and always hid under their blankets when lightning flashed. Rosie joined them on the floor and told them that thunder was only clouds bumping shoulders because they were too close in the sky. The twins laughed and repeated the story until they fell asleep. When Ethan opened the door to check on them, Rosie was still there, sitting quietly beside their beds. That sight stayed in his heart. The next morning, Ethan asked Rosie to join him for coffee in the garden. She was unsure, standing with her hands folded. He said he wanted to thank her for what she had done. He felt his daughters were becoming happier and more confident. Rosie said it was not her alone. She said the girls only needed someone who saw them, not someone who tried to control them. These words stuck with him long after she went back inside. As weeks turned into a month, Ethan noticed something deeper. The soft order that Rosie brought into his home was beginning to reach him too. She shared that she sometimes worked through nights to pay for school supplies. Ethan listened carefully, seeing strength behind her gentle manner. He knew most people would have given up long ago if they had faced what she had. One afternoon, Mia came to the mansion for the first time. She was shy but cheerful, holding a sketchbook in her arms. Lily and Claire were excited to meet her. Within minutes, the three children ran around the garden chasing butterflies. Ethan watched from the balcony as Rosie sat on a bench by the fountain, her eyes following the girls with motherly peace. Something inside him shifted again. It was not admiration alone, but a feeling deeper than respect. When the girls sat down to draw, Mia showed them how to make houses and smiling suns. The twins drew their father beside a woman who looked a little like Rosie. Ethan saw that picture later and felt his heart flutter with a mix of surprise and longing. He folded the page carefully and placed it in his drawer. That evening, dinner felt like a celebration. The twins talked endlessly about their day. Mia sat beside Rosie, and Ethan listened to their laughter filling the large dining hall that once felt like an empty museum. He realized warmth had returned to the rooms because one woman treated his family like more than a job. After dinner, when the children were asleep, Ethan found Rosie cleaning up the kitchen. He told her to leave the chores to the staff, but she shook her head gently, saying that work made her calm. He watched her for a quiet moment, feeling how natural she looked there, as if she belonged. Later that night, as the mansion rested, Ethan stood by the window, thinking about how far things had come. He no longer saw Rosie as only a helper. She was a light that entered his home and somehow reached the spaces within his heart that he had locked away. For the first time in years, the billionaire who had everything realized that what he truly needed could not be bought. It was already there, shared in laughter, patience, and the unshakable kindness of a single mother who changed his world. The following month brought both calm and worry into the mansion. The days began with sunshine and laughter, but something new was growing inside Rosie that she did not show. The closer she became to the family, the more she feared losing them. She was happy, yet she knew happiness like this never came easy or stayed forever. The twins were learning quickly. They could write short letters, bake small cookies, and even fold their clothes. They became attached to Rosie, always holding her hand and asking for bedtime stories. Ethan watched this bond with pride. He saw strength in Rosie's ways. Our lessons were simple but full of meaning. One night she told the twins that kindness could fix many broken things. Ethan remembered that line long after the lights went out. One morning, Ethan left early for a company meeting. The news was heavy. A rival had spread untrue stories about his business. A magazine printed articles that showed his family in a harsh light, saying his children had too much freedom and that he was careless as a father. One photograph even showed Rosie and the girls in the garden. The caption called her the mystery woman in the mansion. By noon, The story had reached everyone in the city. Some said she was unfit for the position. Others whispered that she was trying to win the billionaire's heart. Rosie read the story herself, in shock. She did not know how reporters had learned her name. When she went to work that day, she could feel the staff watching her with new eyes. Their looks were no longer warm. Ethan returned home that evening, tired and angry. He threw the magazine on his desk. The company board had called, said the story could hurt his business image. They demanded that he let Rosie go for the sake of his reputation. Ethan argued, but their voices were firm. They said no matter how much she might care for the children, he could not risk another scandal. When Rosie entered the study to ask about the next day's schedule, she found Ethan sitting in silence. The twins were asleep upstairs. She saw the magazine cover and understood everything. Her throat tightened. Ethan looked at her but could not find words. He wanted to say that none of it was true, but he was trapped between duty and feeling. Rosie broke the silence first. She said she had seen the newspapers and knew what must happen. She told him she would leave before morning. Ethan stood up fast. He said she did not have to do that, but she shook her head. Her soft voice carried both pain and pride. She said she would never bring shame to his family. She also said she was thankful he had trusted her with his daughters. Then she turned to go. Ethan's hand lifted as if to stop her, yet it dropped back to his side. In his heart, he knew she deserved better than empty promises. That night was silent. The twins slept peacefully, unaware that their world was about to change again. Rosie sat alone in her small apartment, packing her few things into a box. Mia hugged her, asking why she was sad. Rosie smiled and said some things must end even if they are good. Early morning arrived gray and cold. Rosie arrived at the mansion one last time. She cooked breakfast for the girls and helped them with their shoes. When they asked where she was going, she told them she had to take care of something important. Claire began to cry, and Lily ran to hold her. Rosie kissed their foreheads and whispered that brave hearts can love even from far away. Ethan came downstairs just as she was leaving. The words he wanted to speak stayed locked behind his lips. He saw her open the door and step out into the fresh air. For a few seconds, he stood frozen in the hallway. When the door shut, the sound echoed through the large house like a final goodbye. The following days felt long and hollow. The twins grew quiet. They ate little and refused to laugh. Ethan tried to cheer them, but nothing worked. At night, he wandered the halls alone, thinking about all the moments Rosie had brought to life. The clean scent of her soap still lingered in the playroom. The memory of her voice still hung in the air. He realized then that he had waited too long. He had let fear and pride cloud what truly mattered. Rosie had given his daughters joy and given him something close to peace. Losing her felt like losing his way again. The billionaire who once had everything now understood that love was not a matter of power but of courage. He knew the only way to fix what was broken was to follow the same kind of bravery that Rosie had taught his daughters. The stage for his choice was already set. The rain fell heavy that week, as if the sky itself felt the sorrow inside the mansion. Ethan moved through the halls like a man carrying an invisible weight. Each room that once held laughter now felt hollow. The twins missed Rosie terribly. They waited by the gate every morning, hoping she would return. Lily kept one of the paper stars Rosie had made with them under her pillow. Claire refused to read bedtime stories because she said only Rosie made the words sound warm. Ethan tried to hide his guilt, but every small thing reminded him of what he had lost. He began skipping meetings and spending hours in his study. The silence around him grew until he could no longer bear it. He called his mother one evening and asked how to explain to his daughters that some mistakes cannot be fixed. She told him that mistakes can always be corrected if the heart truly means to fix them. It only takes truth and humility. Those words sank deep inside him. Early the next morning, Ethan decided he could not wait another day. He left his silver car behind and took a plain black one, wanting no reporters to follow. The driver carried him through quiet streets until they reached a small school on the edge of the city. The playground was muddy from the rain, and children were running in boots, shouting and laughing. He saw Rosie standing near the doorway holding an umbrella over her daughter, Mia. For a moment, he just watched her, noticing how peaceful she looked despite the cold wind. Her coat was thin, her hands red from work, but her face carried calm strength. When she turned and saw him standing there, her eyes widened. She looked unsure and ready to leave, but he took a few steps forward and spoke before she could walk away. He said he was sorry. His voice was rough but sincere. He said he had been a coward who let others decide what was right. He told her the truth, that the mansion was lifeless without her, and that the girls needed her as much as air. He thanked her for teaching him what no business school ever had, that love and patience can build more than money ever could. Rosie lowered her gaze and listened. When he had finished, she asked why he had come now after so many days. Said he came as soon as he found the courage to be honest. Then he asked her to return, not as a worker, but as part of their lives. Rain started falling again and dripped from his hair onto his jacket. He looked like a man who had forgotten power and remembered humility. Rosie stood silent, her hands shaking slightly. She said she had left because she thought it was right. She had not wanted to hurt anyone's name. She had told Mia they might never go back. Her little girl was listening quietly beside her, clutching her mother's hand. Ethan knelt to Mia's level and told her he was grateful for the joy she had brought to his daughters. Said his girls missed her drawings and laughter. The child smiled shyly, and something soft passed between them. Finally, Rosie sighed. She said she would come back only if he promised one thing, that dignity and kindness would matter more than gossip or pride. Ethan nodded without a word. She smiled faintly and said she would return after collecting her things from home. He could hardly speak, relief shining through his tired eyes. When Rosie and Mia arrived at the mansion later that day, the twins screamed their names and ran to hug them. The sound of laughter returned instantly. The staff smiled again. Even the old gardener wiped his eyes. Ethan stood watching from the doorway and felt warmth flow through him like sunlight after a long winter. Dinner that night was bright and loud. They all sat at the table together, sharing soup and soft bread. It was not formal or fancy, but it felt like family. The twins told Mia about the new flowers in the garden, and Rosie helped them serve dessert. Ethan could not stop smiling. For the first time, he felt balance, as if all the missing pieces of his life had come together. Later, when the children were asleep, Ethan walked out to the balcony. Rosie joined him there. The city lights shimmered under the clear sky. He thanked her again, this time not as an employer, but as a man grateful for everything she had brought into his life. Rosie looked at him and said that sometimes the hardest hearts just need a little honesty to open. He admitted that hers had done the impossible. From that day on, the mansion was not a palace of riches, but a home filled with simple joy. Ethan learned to spend more time with his daughters. Rosie continued teaching them kindness, truth, and courage. The twins grew healthy and happy again. Mia became their closest friend. And Ethan, who once lived only for success, learned that real success was not measured by money, but by love that stays steady even through storms.